Richard, welcome. I don't know how to pronounce your last name though. Can you pronounce it for
Yeah,
me?
it's Willett. Willett.
Willett. Well,
That's it.
welcome. And well, why don't you get started? Like, how did you? Let's talk about your like podcast, your content, and why did you start making content and your or area of interest? How did you come to do it? Yeah, just let's start there.
Okay. I've got an honours degree in film and TV production, so I went into the TV industry, and I realised that what it actually was, and the mainstream of it wasn't where I wanted to be. I was at the BBC and places like that, starting a career there in my mid-20s, so I wasn't that young, and I was like, this is not true. What they're saying is clearly not true. And I saw the background of it. I was like, I knew anyway it wasn't true because I'd already done this research. I was very early in my research days, but I was probably 5 years into knowing this stuff then. So I knew that it wasn't, but I didn't know to the extent that I know now. After about it must be nearly 20 years of research now. So I just didn't want to do it. I was like, I can't do this. I can see how it wrecks the people in it, how they got to behave, how they got to pretend they like people they don't. They've got to pretend to be around people. It's all very fake, very, very fake. So I started on just doing my own stuff, really. This was a while back. So really, it wasn't as big as what it is now. And then I got to know through doing that and researching and interviewing people, I got to know Gareth Icke, who's David Icke's son, and we started doing work together about 7 or 8 years ago now, about 7 years ago, I think. Might be a little bit longer than that. So we just started it together. Like he was with his dad, obviously doing his dad's stuff, but he wanted to branch out and do his own stuff. And we've been doing stuff ever since. We started Iconic, myself, a lady called Gina, Jamie and Gareth, who are David's sons, David Icke's sons, and David himself. We all started this about 7 years ago. And it's just kind of we've managed to keep it going. Really, it's been hard work to keep it going because we don't take a side. We don't, in terms of, we're not politically aligned with anyone. We actually have our own servers. We are absolutely 100% um, independent, which most people say they are and they're not. But we actually are 100% to the point where we have our own servers in our own building, which means we have all the content in our own system, not reliant on anyone else like YouTube or anything like that. It sits on our own systems because we know, given how David is in terms of how well he's known for doing this stuff, that you know they'll try and take us down in any way, shape, or form in terms of our content. So it's just built from there. But I've been doing this for about 20 odd years now.
Right. And what is that what made you to do this? Because the only time when I started thinking about speaking up and even the reason why I started the podcast was what I've seen during the pandemic. I think a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people they realize that things are not normal after the pandemic, but you were saying you guys started way before. What was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
push?
Well, Jamie and Gareth obviously grew up around this information with David Icke. He was one of the leading guys who really, really pushed all the doors open for this with Jordan Maxwell, Max Egan, and many of the Bill Coopers that were really like mid 90s, way before I was old enough to get into this stuff. So that door was already open for Jamie and Gareth. They already knew a lot of this stuff. I started looking into this stuff around about 2000s. 2001, 2002, just after 9/11, and it was quite clear that it's nonsense. I've always known that the teachers didn't know any more than me. I've always known that my parents were just as clueless as I was. It wasn't like I was quite clued up in that sense. So I knew that what we were being told was nonsense and not really the truth. I didn't start investigating it until in my early 20s when I just knew that it was David's work originally that I found, but I found many others along the way. They have said many, many similar things, and I started to look into it myself just to clarify what this is. Some of this is true. And then being someone who'd already was at that time making music and making films, I was very creative in that sense. I started to. I thought, well, I'm going to go to uni and study this to do some work in the media, journalism. And then I got to that point where I did my degree, and then I realised that that wasn't what they were doing there at all. They were completely part and complicit of it. I think I knew that already. I maybe just hoped they wasn't. And then I was like, I've got to go out on my own. And there was nothing really then maybe 10 years ago, really, to the extent it is now, because it was way before COVID. So we started this actually, the iconic phase of it, about a year and a half before the COVID thing kicked off. So we were documenting it as it's gone. I've got videos of me in the hotels with all people with masks on, and me talking to the camera like this is mad, and they're locking down streets in the UK. And I think people forget how dystopian it got. And I'm walking around with no mask on. I'm not doing any of this nonsense. And so I knew early on in my life, I guess in my mid-20s really, when I started to do it. But it was just a gradual process with me. It wasn't an actual waking up. It was almost like this makes more sense than what I've been told elsewhere. So it was more of a confirmation than an actual moment where, oh my God, this is all lies. It was always like, it just confirmed what I thought was true anyway, because it was mental. So I don't know if that answers your question. But
Yeah, no, it's very interesting because I think like a lot of people that I talk to, they mention 9/11. That's when they started questioning things like 9/11. And for me, it was the COVID. And so, yeah, very interesting. So I'm currently very curious about what's happening in the UK because I lived in the UK for a short while, and I don't recognize like even at the time, and I know that there's going to be a lot of like hate, but when I came to UK, I did not expect because I thought like, okay, I learned a lot about English history, right? In Uzbekistan, I grew up in Uzbekistan, so we had English lessons. So I would read the history because we were learning English. So it was part of it, literature. And when I first bought my tickets to come to London, I completely expected to see something else. And I think like one of the first places was like Edgware Road and all these places. And I was like, oh my God, this is so different from what I have expected. What happened? You know,
yeah,
because and it was back in 2006 or 7, I think. And then things now, what I hear is even way different, even more different than it was back then. So what is going on there? And with the digital ID, like is it serious? I see posts, but I don't know what exactly is going on because I think UK is the first country that started talking about digital ID seriously.
it's really interesting you should say that, because being here, I don't get that perspective from outside that it actually seems like that. Because to me, it's like I watch all this stuff and like none of that is happening here. It isn't. It's not
Mm,
happening here. It's all internet. I'm not saying it's not. They're not trying to make it happen. They are definitely trying to make it happen, but it's not happening. People in the UK have kind of dismissed the ID stuff. So there is plans to implement it, but it's not everywhere, and everyone can get hold of it. And I've seen the same things, rumors about it. The social credit system in China, it is there, but it's in very small pockets of China. They're testing out different versions. So it kind of gets overblown. But yes, they absolutely want to try and roll it out here. They won't get away with it because even though a lot of the right-wing people here, the Britain First people, have fallen into the believing Donald Trump's the savior and Elon Musk's the savior, most of them still don't want digital ID. So they're not really buying into that. So that is coming in a sense of them wanting to push it through, but people won't accept it. They didn't accept the COVID stuff as much as they needed to here as well. A lot of people didn't. They did for the first few weeks, first few months even, but after a while, people were like, "I'm not doing this anymore." So I I wouldn't like. I think it's been portrayed as, oh, we're all getting locked under this digital ID. It's not. It's not like. It's
me
not
too.
even anywhere near like to the point where most elderly people can't even use a phone. They're gonna have to wait for the elderly people to move on, to pass on before they get it. But they don't. They work 20 years in advance. So that's not something that's happening today. I wouldn't. They are pushing it. They always work 20, 30 years in advance, maybe even longer. But they're not. It's not today. And what happened was that you were sold a lie of what the UK actually is. It's this City of London look, this whole British look. Now, the City of London, most people won't realise. Well, maybe they do watching your show. Most people who don't watch this sort of thing or look into these sort of things don't realise that the City of London is a corporation within a nation. And Washington, D.C. is a sovereign nation within a nation, and the Vatican is a sovereign nation within a nation. So all three of them are like little worlds within their country. They don't belong to the country. And those three little worlds, are connected under a corporation called the Crown Corporation. They run the world. So you're looking at the Crown Corporation. England is different. So you have the Metropolitan Police, Met means dead, by the way, so they place the dead in Hebrew. So you have a separate entity. It's a little bit like having a when you go to an embassy in a country and you can hide in the embassy. Well, this is the similar thing, but it's a square mile centre of the city of London. Sorry, centre of London, the borough, but it's the city of London. It comes underneath the Crown. It's got its own mayor, which is not Sadiq Khan. It goes underneath, has its own police force, its own banking system. Like, it runs the banking system for the world. So people don't realise there's this crown cult that's got three places. It's got the Vatican is the religious side of it, and I'm not just talking about Christianity and Catholic. It's the whole Babylonian cult rituals that are behind the religions. Then you've got Washington DC, that used to be called Rome, Maryland, because it was Rome. That is the military arm. And then you've got the City of London, which is the finance. It's a corporation that runs the world, but people don't know that. So your government doesn't do anything. Your government is they're agents for this corporation. The United States is, when it says states, the states are franchises of the Crown Corporation. They're not independent. The 1776 thing was a farce. It was two sets of Crown agents, esquires, and Freemasons signing an agreement, which was really just a memo between the three parts of the corporation. It was a facade. So people won't. So if I tell you you're free, you'll think you're free, and you won't fight it. They're not free. They don't come underneath the United States. Their government so much they come under the Crown. America is different from the United States. So there's all of this thing going on, this world within the world that functions completely different from what we think it does.
Right. So when you say there's a mayor, what do you mean? Like there's a different mayor? So
Yeah.
there's like a different legal entity that is unknown?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's not unknown, but most people won't go looking for it. So you've got Mayor of London, which is Sadiq Khan. Really,
Yeah.
it's a front. It doesn't really do much. And then you've got the I think his name's Alistair something. But every year they vote in a mayor of the City of London. Now, the City of London has a guy that goes into the House of Commons and keeps an eye on the interests of the City of London, which is a corporation that really runs the government. So people see a puppet show in politics where they think it's the real deal when really it's not at all. It's the facade. It's like having a fake front on a shop that when you go in the shop, it does something completely different that you think it does, which is a way that they work. So they put facades up, like Zionism is a political arm of this cult, but it's not really anything to do with Israeli people at all. It's just to push a messianic agenda. So everything hides behind layers of other stuff. So most people haven't got a clue about that.
When did this form? Is it something that's been there for a long time?
Late 1700s is when the kind of like the structure of today formed. I mean, this goes back with the bloodlines to way back, thousands of years. It'll go back to Babylon. But really, the establishment of what I would call the Crown Corporation would be from the late 1700s, around about the same time when the independence, the America happened. All of that 1776 stuff was all about reshuffling the corporation. So the kings, the queens, the royals didn't disappear. Their black nobility, they went into the background and sat in the shadows and realized it's easier to put front men out there and lawyers and businessmen, that some of them, which are genetically related to these bloodlines, out as a front and hide in the shadows than it is to do it outright, because the people will start to rise up against the royals.
Like in Russia, the whole family was like assassinated, right, by the Bolsheviks. So it's better.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's better not to. And then whether they were the royal family there, I mean, I don't know much about the Russian one, so I mean, you can teach me loads more about that than I know. But that seems to me very much a situation where those who were really controlling the bloodlines, which are the Venetian black nobility families, probably took out a royal family that were no longer required. The British royal family are not British, for one thing, they're German. They're called Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, they're not Windsor. They changed their name in the during the First World War. So they are related to these House of Hesse, House of Gotha. These are these old bloodlines that go in with the Venetian black nobility bloodlines that supported the Catholic Church, the Papal bloodlines. They've not gone. They're in New York, they're in Vatican, they're in which is the city. They're in Italy, they're in Europe. These bloodlines still exist. You will find the likes of the Bourbon Two Sicilies spending time with Donald Trump. The Bourbon Two Sicilies run the Knights of Malta and the Jesuits. This goes so deep that people look at the political level, which is merely a distraction of the upper level of what's playing here. I'm not saying they don't have any pull, but really they're doing as they're told. Donald Trump was bailed out by the Rothschilds decades ago because he went bankrupt via Wilbur Ross, who's a Jesuit. Donald Trump is Jesuit educated. Erika Trump is Jesuit educated. Sorry, Erika Trump. Erika Kirk
Yeah.
is Jesuit educated. These people are involved with the Knights of Malta, which are an arm of the Knights Templar, which are an arm of the Vatican, which really all come underneath this crown. I call it the Triple Crown Corporation because the Triple Crown is what the Pope used to wear, which means the Trinity. So it all goes very, very deep. And it's taken me decades to get my head around, and I still to this day learn stuff every day new. I was learning about the key at Solomon's ring today, and I read constantly about this stuff because obviously it's what I do for a living, but it's very deep, and I forget sometimes that people have no idea about. They genuinely think that Netanyahu and Trump are running these countries, which is just sad really, because they're not in any way, shape or form.
I mean, I heard about Knights of Malta, I think, for the first time this year when I was interviewing Gray, who was in Monarch, in MK Ultra, like Monarch, and he told me about it, and I was like, wow, I've never heard about it, something like this. But even if I have no knowledge about what you just said about, I always had the feeling that the whole thing was a show. It's just if you watch it, and if you have no like background information, you're just new to this whole scene, even then you can tell something is not real going on here. And every time when I hear Americans saying we have free speech, or like let's vote, or when they say it, or they say our troops went there, or we did this, the word we, when Americans, or even like you guys use we, it feels like are you sure it's we? Because it feels like it's completely different thing. Like your government doesn't feel like it's aligned with the American population, or it always sounded weird whenever a normal person would say we did this, right? Meaning me, my government, my country. And from outside it looks like Americans are separate, their government is separate, and the country has like an official name, United States, but the things that are happening, they're happening from the face, is it how you say it, in on behalf of United States, but it feels like something else is going on. And that's why I was always wondering, why would you say we when it's clearly not we, right? Like we invaded here, or we did this, we did that, our government, our president. It's so weird, but I guess it's difficult. And when you say Trump was Jesuit educated, what can you just, maybe for me, I don't know what that is. What is Jesuit educated? Is it like a university? What is that?
Yeah, there's Jesuit schools everywhere around the world. I mean, there's I don't know how many now, hundreds. The Jesuits come out of they're the secret service, or the secret arm, the spies bit basically of the Vatican. They were started by a guy called Loyola, who was really Sabbatean, which is another faction that goes into what Trump's about, which is really Satanism, and it goes quite deep. But anyway, Jesuits are the secret service of the Vatican. They are the guys that spy for the Vatican. So when you're Jesuit educated, it means you've been brainwashed and indoctrinated, especially at Donald Trump's level. I'm not talking about everyone who goes to Jesuit school. They'll pick out the top lot like Yale does with Skull and Bones. They're cults. But Jesuit educated with someone like Donald Trump or Erika Kirk, absolutely controlled by these Bourbon Two Sicily bloodline families and the Vatican, which again is this religious faction of the Triple Crown Corporation, as I call it. So they are Manchurian candidates to a certain degree. They're brainwashed into playing roles, and they've been given those roles all their life. They get doors open for them. They're connected to the Freemasons, the top level of the Freemasons, which really are the Knights Templar. The Knights of Malta were the Knights, I believe, Hospitalia, and they changed their name to the Knights of Malta later on. So it's all Freemasonics, all secret societies. This specific one, the Jesuits, have a blood oath that you have to take to swear not to give up any of these secrets. But they are really all just one cult. And it has to do with a messianic agenda, which goes into what they want to do in the Middle East. It's why you're seeing what's happening now, and people just don't have a clue. So when you see Trump over there, he's not serving the United States or even Zionism and Israel. So that's what he is. But really deep in the shadows, he's serving a cult that want to play out biblical prophecies. And the Jesuits are part of that. They control the Christian sect of that. So the best way I suppose I can describe it is that all of these religions and all of these faiths have a virus, a disease that's infiltrated them called Sabbatean Frankism. And that disease turns everything that you would think is good about that faith inside out, which is Satanism.
Right. Okay. So many questions there. So how do we know that they are Jesuit like how do we know? How do you
Yeah,
know?
they'll tell you. Yeah, you can find out if they're Jesuit educated. You can just look up on their bio, but it doesn't
Oh,
necessarily mean that everybody who's Jesuit educated is in that far. But when you're going to have a look at someone like Donald Trump or an Erika Kirk, or say a Dr. Fauci who's Jesuit educated, you are looking at people who have had doors open for them all their lives, and there's a reason why those doors open, because those who controlling the door mechanism are in on it too. You don't get in those doors without having to be corrupt. It just doesn't happen. The system is the beast system already. So if you're that far up the beast system, you're corrupt in some way.
right. So okay. So then they're not hiding it. It's in their bio.
Hmm.
Okay. Um right. And their success is because they belong to this cult. Or is it possible that they have gained their success and because of that the cult is using them?
I think there's a good point, and I think mostly they get a level of success, because you can get a level of success if you're good at something, if you have a talent for something, especially a while back, less so now, but then they'll use you. They'll open that door for you at some point.
Mhm.
Whether, especially child like actors, or like, they'll get to a point where they get to their elder years, and is your career gonna continue or is it gonna falter? Like Michael Jackson was a clear example of that. Got involved with Quincy Jones, who was a mobster in New York, and he was involved. He was invited into the cult. Now, I'm not saying Michael Jackson was bad. Clearly, he was trying to get out from that, and they tried to take him down many times, including Harvey Weinstein and all those guys, Dave Geffen. But there is a level where you can get some sort of fame because if you're talented, but then then that's not the big level of fame. That's not the big level of success. That's not the big political positions. You're always on the outskirts, and you'll get invited into these parties and into these places. And everybody who does this research knows that that's how it works. You get invited through those doors. It's the same thing with the Freemasons. They'll tell you, like a Tyler. A Tyler is the name of the Freemason office that guards the door to the Freemasonic lodge. Who comes in and who comes out? Well, what was the guy called that apparently killed Charlie Kirk? His name was Tyler Robinson. There's Freemasonry involved in all of this, and the symbology is there. So yeah, you can get a level of fame, but not to that extraordinary levels. No.
Right. So that means it okay. So if let's say somebody has a great chance of becoming a president, right?
Hmm.
And they don't belong to the cult. So either they will not become a cult or they have to become part of the cult to have those powerful positions.
Yeah, and if they step out of line, I mean, that's clearly America was set up by these occultists. As I said earlier, the Freemasons and Esquires signed a memo, independence of America, when really it was just an in-house memo. So yes, the Kennedys were a well-known family because of the Onassis. Is it Onassis? Yeah, I think it's Onassis' his mum. background. So they got in because they were born into these wealthy families. But because they didn't do as they were told, and they did try to buck the system to somewhat, I'm sure they weren't perfect. The Kennedys back then were taken out, many of them. And now you've got RFK, who did try to go in there and do some stuff, RFK Jr., and now he's bending over backwards for Israel, and he's doing everything he's told by these Chabad Lubavitch nutters that want to level Gaza and build a new temple. It's very, very deep. People just don't understand that there is a cult, and it's all about playing out biblical prophecies. So, yeah, you won't get to be president, but it doesn't really matter whether you get to be president anyway, because you're just a front puppet.
Yeah. So what is that biblical prophecy is about? What are they trying to achieve?
Well, basically, they have a thing called Lurianic Kabbalah, but this goes into all sorts of other areas, but I'll try and keep it simple. So they see the world as being created as the world was created in the biblical text over 7 days. By the end of the 7th day, they need a great reset. That's their new world order. So you would take that, but from say we go from Monday to Sunday, that's 7 days, don't we? In the Jewish faith, and these are not all Jewish people, this is a subsect of Lurianic Kabbalists that really are Sabbatean, that are using the Jewish faith as a shield. Their first day of the week is on Sunday. So their last day of the week is Saturday. So it's the Sabbath. So it kind of shifts it up. They're always slightly out of sync. So they believe that God created the world in 7 days, but on the 7th day he had a rest, which is the Sabbath. Well, now they believe in that correlates to 1,000 years since the creation of Adam, which was 4,000 years before, approximately, before Jesus was born. So we're at about 6,000 odd years at the moment. We're in the 6,000th year. So they believe we are at the creation year of 5,785. But by the time it gets to the 6,000th year, they want to rest for that 7th day. So that's 220 years from now. We can't really be here messing up their project. Or if we do, we've got to be transhumans and do as we're told, or have social credit. So we're comply to everything. So they believe that at the end of being able to get this creation myth done, and if they can't get it done in time, they are subjected to their evil creator God Yahweh of the Old Testament. They believe this stuff. So part of that is building the third temple on Temple Mount. It is about playing out biblical end times prophecies. That's what these guys are doing. So when you look at Netanyahu and you look at Donald Trump and you look at Jared Kushner, type in Chabad Lubavitch. They're not the main guys, by the way. They are just one of the sects. But that's the New York, Brooklyn sect that they're involved with. They're the guys who were climbing out the tunnels a few years ago on the floor and digging out tunnels underneath. They are Lurianic Kabbalists and they believe in this stuff. They control, or they are deeply influential on Donald Trump, Jared Kushner, and Netanyahu, openly so. These guys, I believe, they're not at the top of the tier. They work for the black nobility bloodlines. But this is what we're looking at. We're looking at a messianic agenda. And those black nobility bloodlines believe they are the descendants of the Anunnaki. They're demigods. So they believe they should be able to run the world. And it gets really deep into AI and the temple and building that temple as the smart grid and all of this stuff. I put this all in my film, I Am Immortal. It's out on iconic.com now, in a way that people can understand it. So if you go and watch it, it's almost like a comic book, because this is very much a narrative. And then people will shake their head and go, they wouldn't do that. Well, go and have a look into it and see what you think. But remember that we are narrative beings. So for me and you to meet here today to tell us to have a chat, you had to narratively work it out in your head that you'll be here at this point, you'll sit down at this point, you'll get Richard to turn up at this point. It's a movie. So everybody plays things out as a movie. They're trying to act out biblical prophecies and claim it's the work of God when it's not. It's just people doing horrible stuff. That's what Gaza's about. That's why 67,000 people were killed in Gaza, because they need that land.
For what again?
For a messianic agenda, their end times. So by the time it comes to the end of the 7th day, which is their Sabbath, they click over into the new week. So Sunday would end in our week. For them it's Saturday, but Sunday would end in our week. We go over to Monday. So for them to go over to the new week, which will be the 8th day, that's their new world order. That's their new world. They want to get it in before then. They see the lead up to that as 1,000 years per day. We're at the year 5,785, according to them. And go and have a look at Randy Fine, who's a staunch supporter of Donald Trump. He wears a hat with it on. They're telling you.
So why specifically that piece of land? Why there? What's going to happen there?
Because they believe the biblical God, Yahweh, who is the demiurge in Gnosticism and who is the evil creator God in the Matrix, it's all the same character. They believe he promised them that land and the world to come. This new world order was theirs to reign over. They believe they are the lost tribes of Israel, the seed of or Adam, but down to Abraham and Isaac. Yeah, Abraham, Isaac, and then to Jacob, who changed his name to Israel. So they believe they are the lost tribes of Israel, and they are genetically connected to these bloodlines of the Anunnaki, and they are the rightful rulers of the earth. As mad as it sounds, would you? And it does sound mad. Would you go like I try and explain it in a way like it is mad, and these people are mad, and that's why I'm trying to tell you about them. But would you say to Charles Manson? Would you question whether Charles Manson was capable of doing horrible stuff? No, you
Well,
wouldn't, because you've
not
been
after reading Tom O'Neill's book.
exactly, yeah. It's great. So he's he was involved with the Rosemary's Baby stuff, which is another bloody Antichrist part of it as well. So these people are nutters in a cult. So if you can get out the way of them being sold as politicians, as people, like they're in a cult that goes back thousands of years, but it really kicked off in the late 1700s.
Right. I'm gonna go and watch a documentary because I still don't understand like what exactly is gonna happen on that land and what does reset mean? Does that mean everybody has to die? Like what are we talking about?
Quite a lot of us. Yeah, quite a lot of us. They want to. So the key components of that would be humans that are humans at that point will be called human 2.0, human plus. I think, yeah, if you've heard that term, like it's the transhuman. It's the biological human that's not quite human like we are now. Our bodies are changed a bit and connected in with the smart grid. This is what they want humans to be, because then they're controllable. So they do want humans around, but they would be called human 2.0 or human plus, which is transhumanism. But there wouldn't be many of them, and they would do all the dirty work. Now, this harks back to the way that humans were allegedly created by the Anunnaki as a slave race to do the dirty work of the Igigi. The Igigi were having to do all the dirty work of terraforming this world. They didn't want to do it anymore. So, and two of the Anunnaki brothers, Enki and Enlil, I'm not saying this is true, by the way, this is just the story.
Yeah.
They created humans to do the dirty work. Now, we were created in a way that some of us were giants and we were noisy. So they did the flood to get rid of us and reset it again. Well, these transhumans are basically what these occultists want to create to do the dirty work so they don't have to do it. And really, they have a system of that already, because we go out and work and give all our taxes to the Crown Corporation. So we already live in a version of that anyway. People just don't realize it because you're born into it. So but that will be biologically, you will be connected to this system, which will be the smart grid, which will be your Neuralink connection. And the temple on Temple Mount, even these Chabad guys, these occult guys that Donald Trump and Netanyahu and Putin are all involved with, they call it on their website, Chabad.org. If you type in Solomon's Temple, and it'll say, why do we need a third temple on Temple Mount? It says, as a broadcasting system and a transmitter to the rest of the world. They tell you that that's what they want to do. So this will be beamed straight into your head. As mad as it sounds, I'm not saying they could do these things, but they're sure happy to kill a lot of people trying. And that's what the film's about. It takes you all the way up to the end there. So Solomon's Temple, the third temple of Solomon, or the third temple on Temple Mount, will be a broadcasting system. That's what they're aiming to do. That's why they've done this in Gaza, because they were promised that land. That's their land that their God Yahweh gave them. And they want to build the third temple. And all of this is about steps and stones. If you read Revelations, the book of Revelations, which is, again, not a real thing that's going to happen. People are doing these things. that was all written as a story to be, as a narrative to be followed and played out by human beings, and that's what they're doing. So they're bringing about their end times, their biblical end times. That's why they all pretend to be Christian evangelicals when they're really Zionist, Israeli, messianic lot. But most evangelicals won't know that. They just won't have a clue. They just think that they need to support Israel because the book tells them they have to support Israel. It's insane when you take it apart.
What do you think about Elon Musk? Does he belong to any of these cults?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
Oh, absolutely. Elon Musk was brought up in a family. His grandfather or great grandfather was something Hadelman, and he was the leader of a thing called Technocracy Inc.
yeah.
Technocracy Inc. was transhumanism. It was, they wanted this system in place. It's part of this whole social credit system. So he was born into this. He was named after a character in a book by Nazi scientist von Braun.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
Have you
That
seen that? And it's true. He's named Elon. I mean, there's many other Elons. He could have been biblical Elon, but I mean, the likeliness of this being an accident or it's not. It's a bit silly, really. So he was a NASA scientist brought over. He was a Nazi scientist brought over to NASA. Same thing. And he wrote a book called Project Mars, or the Mars Project. And the guy that took the character that took humanity to Mars to repopulate it was called Elon. So they're playing character roles that have been put out. So he's deeply involved with that. That's why he does Neuralink. That's why he uses X, which is a symbol of Saturn. That's why he's funded by Qatar Sovereign Wealth Fund. That's why he was in Qatar with Jared Kushner, who's a Habadnik, with the Qatar lot, the Sovereign Wealth Fund lot, who've helped fund his X buyout because he doesn't own any of these companies. He's a frontman. He's a transhumanist, and transhumanism is the latest word. It was a word that was brought about by Julian Huxley, Aldous Huxley's brother, to replace the word eugenics because it got a bad name after World War II. So, and their grandfather was Thomas Huxley. Thomas Huxley started something. He was part of the Royal Societies, and he was a eugenicist, and he started something called the X Club, which was an exclusive club. So Elon's just the continuation, the poster boy for the X Club at the moment, which is the Saturn Club. So they are all in on it together. Now, I don't know if Elon wants to be. He has autism. He has Asperger's. So I think they've taken advantage of him completely. But he is part of it, absolutely.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about like what you think about this Charlie Kirk assassination. I am very confused because first of all, I had no idea who he was really. I mean, for somebody who's not in the US, I think it's difficult to know all these political figures. And I have seen some of his viral videos, and only after he died, I came across his content and I was like, wow, he seems like he was a great guy, and he was very smart, and some of the things that he said were amazing, and I was like, wow, kind of makes sense why somebody would want to shut him up, because the things that were he saying, nobody was saying those things, and he seemed very brave and wise for his age. So I was very surprised. But now you just mentioned Erika Kirk, right? Again, like, with all due respect, like I have like I don't want to come off like I'm criticizing her or anything like that, but when you said just now that she's Jesuit educated, I was like, okay, that's very strange, because one of the things that after he passed away, there were a lot of videos that were circulating on YouTube with him and her and their interaction, and it seemed like she was so much in love with him on all these videos. Like, she was just so admiring him and in love with him, and I just watched her after, and it seemed a little bit out of what like odd behavior, because I felt like any other woman would not be able to get out of bed. Like,
Yeah.
if you were in love with somebody so much, with the father, even if you were not in love, imagine that you're not in love like she was in these videos, but just the father of your children died, right? I would be devastated. I would just not be able to put two words together. I would just be in bed, and for months, it would take me months. And I think like a lot of women, like if you think there are women out there, if you put yourself in that situation, you can objectively say that she is a very strong woman, like to be able to get up and come to this big event and speak and hold yourself like you would be just so distraught. So for me it was like wow, right? And I'm like, when you said that she's just it does is are these different people, like how are they managing to be,
Mm.
or do you have any ideas? What are your thoughts, by the way,
It's
or
a great
about
point.
not
It's a
only
great
about
observation.
her, yeah.
It's a great observation that she's a different person before and she's after, because I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think that when you come to these Mancurian candidates, these compartmentalized guys through MK Ultra, these type of things, which we know happened. I mean, they openly talk about these things now. It's not hidden anymore. I think that there are multiple people inside her. That I don't think she'll be a victim of this. This goes back a long way. She would have been brought up into this. She won like Miss, I don't know where she was, Miss Utah or wherever she was.
Hmm.
She won one of them. She would have been indoctrinated in this. She happened to just find Charlie when she was in a where were they? They were in an airport or something, and she said, I saw him in the snake of the queue. Now that's symbolism, if anything, I've ever heard. Of course it is. So she's not only educated, she is a member, I believe. She's been seen several times with the Knights of Malta necklace on. The Knights of Malta are controlled by the Bourbon Two Sicilies, which is one of these black nobility bloodlines that really are very high up in the Vatican, along with the Orsini family. These Bourbon Two Sicilies have been with Donald Trump at his Mar-a-Lago place, whatever you call it, where Epstein liked to go. These all guys are connected. So this goes deep into the cult, and she's just a minor player in it, but I think she's been abused and used in this system. And there are people out there that think she was sent in initially just to be that handler, to keep an eye on him. This goes really deep. I'm not saying she did, but her behavior, as you say, is completely bizarre. When you've just seen your husband shot in front of you with your kids there, you don't behave that way. And then she did this hand signal thing at
Yeah,
the
which
which is,
apparently meant I love you or
it
something.
is I love you. It is I love you. So it is I love you. But what's really fascinating about that, because this is how you have to go and do the research and really sit with these things and not jump on it. And it's really difficult not to do, because it is I love you, but it was made. It wasn't initially. It was a universal. They use it in places like New Zealand as well. So it's not the devil's horns, which is the thumb in clasping the fingers. It's the I love you sign. But when you really look into who made that the I love you sign, it was Helen Keller. Now, Helen Keller was the granddaughter of a guy, and I forgot his name, and I should know because I've just done the video about this. A guy who was a high level Scottish Rite Freemason, who was in the same lodge as Albert Pike, and their lodge is on Washington, D.C. It's the Southern jurisdiction. Her grandfather was one of the most powerful Freemasons at the time, with Albert Pike, who wrote Morals and Dogma, who was the world's most famous Freemason. She has a huge background in Freemasonry. She was interested in something called Swedenborgianism, which seemed quite nice to me, to be fair. And then when you look into her other connections, it was Theosophy. So she has an occult background. So to her and to Trump, who are both sitting on stage at that same point, does that mean I love you? Or does it mean what we thought it meant? I love you, Lucifer.
Ooh.
Because I think it means I love you, Lucifer, to them. And people get caught up in what it means to me or to you. I'm not interested in what it means to me, because I'm not in with them, thankfully. But those lot are. So what it means to them, I believe, is I love Lucifer. She was in with the Freemasons. Her grandfather was one of the most prominent Freemasons, the Scottish Rite, who are the ones that set up the United States for the crown. So there's no way that connection doesn't mean nothing. So this is how you have to go and do the research and really look at the background of what they're saying to each other. Yes, it means I love you, but does it mean I love you, Satan, to them? I don't know. Only she'll know that.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, I thought it is. I mean, again, I'm not very familiar with the American culture. I don't know what signs people show each other. I am completely out of the loop, so I don't know. But what I've seen a lot is the heart. Like that's something that I saw a lot. So it
Yeah.
would make more sense to do that.
Well,
That sign I've never.
the heart is the caduceus. The heart is the two-headed
Oh, don't
snake.
tell me there's something else there behind
Yeah.
heart as well. Oh
The
my
heart,
God.
it's that thing is the two-headed snake. It's the caduceus.
Oh
It's
no.
the two snakes at the top of the
Okay.
rod of Aaron, I think it is. So yeah, that's part of it as well. They all are when you go back, but
Yeah.
again, they can be used in any context you like. You have to get the context right. You have to get the
Mm,
narrative right. It's really important to understand their background and who they are connected with each other, to understand what they are signaling to each other. So it
yeah.
really is important to do that part of it, because these signs and symbols purposely mean 4 or 5 different things. That's why you have the Torah or the Talmud. That's why the Torah has two different. It has an oral Torah and a written Torah, because they want it to be confusing. You're supposed to argue about these things. You're supposed
Right.
to, because they do
Just like
mean dual things. They do. But what does it mean to this in this context? That's the important thing.
I mean, that's exactly what's happening with this assassination, right? A lot of different things. There's this Patsy, there's this guy who was arrested, and then there's this guy with a cap. So many things going on,
Mm.
and th- there are people. I think Candace Owens is like, oh, they made a mistake. They shouldn't have done this or that. And I thought, this is, I mean, this
Yeah.
whole thing, I think was supposed to be like that. They didn't make a mistake. The way I think is, if you're running the world and if you get to do whatever you want, kill whoever you want, you don't want it to be easy. You know, like you want it to be challenging. You want, if it's all so easy, it's boring. You want it to be like, you want people to be talking about those things. I don't think those are mistakes. I think those are done on purpose.
It's alchemy. That's exactly what it is. It's alchemy. It's order out of chaos. So you have to create the chaos first. It's problem, reaction, solution. It's the same thing. Hegelian dialect. It's alchemy. These guys know how the world works and how people operate. So they use our alchemical principles. That's why the Star of Israel is the seal of Solomon, which is so above as below. It's all part of it. They understand these are old principles of how the world works. Now, this is information that came from the mystery schools that was available to all of us. They've stolen it and held it for themselves, but they understand the nature of reality and how we function. So they understand they have to create chaos to get the reaction to provide the order. So Donald Trump's just been crowing on about stopping the war in Gaza. Utterly ridiculous. The guy think I think it's 116 billion and 4 billion in March with Marco Rubio to slaughter children in Gaza. You do not go to the person who paid for the slaughter and go, thank you for stop slaughtering us. It's absurd. But that's order out of chaos. They create the chaos, they get the reaction, then they provide the order, and you thank them, which is Stockholm syndrome. People have got Stockholm syndrome who support Trump. Trump has funded the deaths of 67,000 Palestinians and 20,000 children included in there, 170,000 injuries. He funded that. So did Keir Starmer. The West funded that for Netanyahu because they're in the cult. And then you go to him because and not only that, it gets even worse as to when you realise who Hamas were funded by, the same people. Netanyahu propped up Hamas, openly so, admitted to that, give some ridiculous excuse because it's problem, reaction, solution. They provide the problem, they get the reaction and provide solution. This is alchemy. This is order out of chaos. They create the chaos. They always have. 9/11 was the same. 9/11, Revelations 9/11, Abaddon coming out of the bottomless pit. The Twin Towers are the two towers outside Solomon's temple. It's all occultism. But once you start to understand that, it's so blatant. It's really, really blatant.
Why do you think they took him out?
I think he was genuinely starting to understand some of this stuff. I don't think he understood this stuff. So I think he was genuinely starting to understand. They propped him up, gave him his platform, like they gave him the ability to like turning point. I think he genuinely believed in what he was doing. Then he started to question at the very end the people behind it. And I think that's why He had the platform. He'd gone into the cult, but then he weren't willing to play the game anymore because he started to realise that, hang on a minute, this isn't what I thought it was. So I think so. I mean, there is elements where maybe he's not dead. I don't know, but from what I can tell, he's dead, and I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not really questioning whether he's dead or not because they don't mind getting rid of anyone. It's just he, to me, was starting to realise the truth about this stuff and starting to speak about it. And I think Candace Owens knows, and I think she's ring fencing it to just point the finger at Israel because she's a Catholic. She's got some dodgy back connections as well. She married a guy that she only known for 13 days, who was the head of Turning Point UK. So it's all a bit weird. It's probably her handler, and he's very wealthy and connected. So I think she's trying to ring fence the conversation just to keep people looking at Israel, when that doesn't mean anything. It's actually these black nobility messianic cultists. So it's very, very, it's all very, it's quite easy to understand once you understand it, but it's all very flip-floppy. People are two-faced. They show you one side whilst doing another. If they got to that level, to that extreme level, maybe she isn't. Maybe she's genuinely wanting to out the people. But Israel is not going to be the answer to any of this, to the Charlie Kirk situation. They're probably involved at some level, but it's not where the power really lies.
Do you think that she is sort of how they call it? I think the word is controlled opposition.
I do. Myself, I do, yeah.
But do you think that she, I mean, is she aware that she's controlled opposition?
Well, that's it, isn't it? And it's a really good question, because how do we know we're aware? I mean, I have to be kind of understanding that I work in this industry, and how do I know I'm not being used for certain things? You don't, do you? You know? So only she'll know if she's aware or not. And I've said it about Erika Kirk. Only she'll know what that hand signal meant to her and to, I can tell, and to Trump and to the occultists. I can tell you all the background, and you can make an decision for yourself. But only really she'll know. Only really the cult know. Only Candace Owens will really know what she's part of. And yeah, I agree with you. You can get involved with stuff, and maybe she didn't know what she was getting involved with, and she doesn't. Maybe she doesn't know how she is. Maybe she's a genuine Catholic and believes that the Catholic Church isn't the cult of Babylon relocated and all the names changed, which clearly it is. But, she hasn't been a Catholic for long.
Right. So what is, I mean, okay, so if Candace Owens is control opposition, and then we have the mainstream narrative, where should we, who should we listen to? Like, where's the truth?
Well, you should take all of the information you can get hold of and decide for yourself, because it's the only way to do it. I write at the end of all of my research and all my blogs and the book that I'm writing and all the videos is do your own research and come to your own conclusions. You have to decide what's true for you. I can only tell you what I found. Again, I just said then, I don't know whether I'm part of something that I don't understand. I have to be aware of that. If you're truly honest with yourself, you only know so much. Candace Owens might be controlled, but she might not know she's controlled. It doesn't work that way. If you're self-aware enough, you're aware enough to know that you are susceptible as anybody else to lies and propaganda and everything you do. That's why you wade through it. And I know I'm not, but no one really knows. So in terms of what they're getting themselves in with, we don't know what happens after. I'll put it this way: we don't know what happens before we're alive, but when we die. So how little do we actually bloody know what's going on anyway? So really, just be nice, don't be a div, and then try your best. That's all really you can do. And it's this stuff, to me, I don't take it massively. I know a lot about it, but it doesn't make me a better or worse person for knowing a lot about it. I'm still a nice person to people. This is just stuff. And if someone turned around to me one day and said, Richard, you were completely brainwashed and none of that really was any trial, I'd go, all right, I'm still a nice person.
At least you were a nice person, yeah.
Yeah. So I can't say that whether Candace Owens knows what she's doing or she actually is doing it or she's a bad person. I can't tell you that, and no one can other than herself. No one can, and that's that private wall that people don't get to, which I think is important.
I think what you said, I really like it because I that's what I noticed, that we get so involved in this being right wing or left wing, being Republican or Democratic, whatever
Mm,
it is, and that we forget that to treat each other with respect. As soon as this is what I noticed, as soon as you hear something that is not in line with what you believe, you become like, people become so disrespectful, aggressive, and hateful. And I just, that's what I think. Like, if what if you are wrong, but then you were so mean to other people, you were so disrespectful, and you had so much hate. I mean, it's just such a regretful thing. And I think that I like that message. No matter what you believe in, just like treat everybody else with respect and be polite, because that's what's left at the
yeah.
end, because we don't know what's true and what's not true anyways.
And you can't always live to that. I don't always live to that. We've got feelings and we get angry. And I'm not saying that I live on a cloud, and I don't live to that all the time. I get angry at people and annoyed at people, especially when I know when someone's actually purposely lying to people. That's my issue. Again, like, you're only here for a short amount of time. Like this stuff, I feel sorry for the guys that really do know what's going on. These black nobility bloodlines, and maybe even above them, I don't know about. Because what a waste of a life.
To do what? To
But
build.
just be an arsehole.
Yeah.
Be your whole life. And that's why they end up drunk and drinking. They've got nothing else to do with their time. And this is like idle hands because they're so rich. They've got so much money. They don't have to do anything. They end up screwing it all up for the rest of us because they're bored, probably. And they want their life to mean something. So they start to look into all this occult stuff and believing they're born for a special reason and put into that family for a special reason. And it's like, you're just bored.
Yeah, I think like true, because what I also noticed is when I do something good for someone, right? When I even help out somebody, I feel so good about myself. Like, I just, even if just a small thing, my spirit lifts up. I feel so much
Mm,
better. But again, if I do something, if I'm mean or malicious to someone, I feel bad. So I guess it's kind of like maybe they're like in this vicious cycle where they're just bad, and then it just keeps getting worse and worse, and you cannot get out of it, and there's just, you're stuck there.
yeah,
Um,
I think you're right. I think there's a land and nod. I think they were brought up that way, and their parents were probably treating them like that as well, and their parents treated them like that, and it's just gone on and on for thousands of years. At some point, it has to stop. We've got to the point where 67,000 people have been killed for this madness, and thousands and millions more through the years. But this is just in the last 2 years. 20,000 children. At some point, it has to stop. At some point, you have to look outside what you're going. There's the whole shadow work of Carl, and I think this is really important. You've characters, and I think this is what they were trying to get across with the calling the morning star both Lucifer and the bright morning star Jesus, which is Christ. You have and I don't believe they were real people, by the way. I'm not saying that they were. I think it's an analogy. The morning star is Venus. It's the first thing you see in the morning. It's the last thing you see at night. The last star you see at night. It's the brightest star in the morning, brightest star at night. What are you going to become during that day? Are you going to become Lucifer, or are you going to become Christoph, the crown? What are you going to do with that day? And it's an analogy for what you're going to do with that day. And they've put it into these characters, and the same with Batman and Joker. It's the same thing. Batman saw his his mum and dad killed in front of him, and he had to decide what to do with that demons, that energy. He could become the Joker, which was the evil side he could have become, or he could become the Batman. And the Batman is him taking his shadow and integrating his pain and controlling it. Joker was the chaos outcome. Batman was the controlled outcome, the order outcome. Chaos and order. There's all analogies for the same thing. What are you going to do with your pain? Now, so Donald Trump's probably been treated terribly by his dad. His dad was probably an arsehole. His dad was probably an arsehole. Elon Musk's got Asperger's. Clearly, his dad was horrible. His dad's been put up for charged with abusing young women, or some of his kids, like sexually abusing, and also he married his stepdaughter. Sorry, he had a kid with his stepdaughter. Elon Musk grew up in a really deranged family. But what are you going to do with that? That hurt. Are you going to be Joker? Or are you going to be the Batman? Are you going to be Lucifer or the Satan? Because Lucifer was his name before he fell. He was a good angel, was Lucifer. He fell, became Satan. So you're going to become Satan, or are you going to become the Christ? It's just analogies. What are you going to do with your pain? Because this is a hard place to be in. So this is all to do with alchemy. Again, that's an alchemical principle. Another name for Venus was Thesaurus or Phosphorus. Phosphorus is the spark that you see, the first spark you see in alchemy from the chemicals. So it's the Venus, it's the light, it's all alchemy. And what are you going to do with that first spark of life that you are? And these are lessons, these are life lessons. They're philosophy, they're allegories, they're mythologies, they're alchemy, they're all of these teachings that we would have been taught when we were younger, how to actually handle the hardship of life, which have been hidden from us, which are actually innate within all of us. We know this stuff because when I say it, and when I've read other people say it to me and how I learned off, you have that moment of, oh, that makes sense. Because it makes sense, because it's what we are, it's truth. It's just the truth. What we always know, we've been told, we've been conditioned to forget. So this ain't about temples, and this ain't about the end times. This isn't about prophecies. This is about the human condition. This is about what you're going to do with your time here. And it's a painful, hard place to be in, but it doesn't need to be anywhere near as painful as it is at all. That's the beast system. We're living invertedly. So I hope people like when watch the film that it's not just or read the books, or it's not about the outward stuff, it's about the inward stuff.
Now I wonder, when you brought up that movie Batman, I just realized that most of the Hollywood movies, the good wins at the end.
Mm.
There's always a battle between good and bad, and then good wins. But then don't we consider Hollywood to be like this epitome of Satanism? But why does always good win then in the movies?
It's a good point. It's a good point.
What is it? Maybe because that's what people want to.
I think that's it. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. People wouldn't buy into it if the bad won in the end. And it keeps you feeling like there is some hope in the world. I suppose it kind of like, it distracts you. It's fictional, so it's on the screen. The good guys win on the screen, but they don't win in real life. I think that's probably the case. Is that we'll give them a little bit of, give them a win, but you'll do it in fantasy land. In the real world, the mass murderers get the Nobel Peace Prize. And I think that's what it is. It's to placate people. But Hollywood, you're right. It absolutely comes from the holly tree, and Rome comes from Rome. It was a old pagan ritual from Hollywood Hills in Rome, around a lake called Diana's Mirror. They used to sacrifice people in there and promise them immortality, which is to become a star. So it's all an occult ritual. So it's an alchemical ritual. But you're right. This is a good question. I think that's what I can come up with, is that it gives you a little bit of steam that you think you kind of buy into the movies because it's not real. And whilst they deal with the real world, it's a little bit like Christianity in a sense, where they say their heaven, their salvation is in the afterlife. But when you look into the Jewish faith, into the actual Kabbalistic mysticism of Jewish faith, their actual salvation is here in the physical world. That's why they want to be transhumanists and live forever. So it's a little bit like a death cult will tell you that death is good for you, which is what's happened in Christianity. You've got to die to be saved. They want to live here forever because they don't want to die. They're terrified of death, which is Kronos, which is Saturn, which is Old Father Time, which is Yahweh. So it's all there. It's all life lessons. But I think that's a really good point about Hollywood. Why do they give you because I think that it satiates you for a little while. That's what it does. Keeps you coming back for more.
Yeah, I think like that's we always want. That's very interesting because there are these sections and segments, right, that are Luciferians or Satanists, but the majority seems to be good. Right, because I know, like, when I'm outside just randomly, and if I drop something, most likely somebody's gonna give it to me. Like if I drop a wallet, they're gonna bring it to me. in in Germany, or like even back home in Uzbekistan, there are two different countries, but wherever I was, I saw good from people, like in general, in public. Obviously, I don't know what's happening, how people behave in their own homes, but outside. So it seems like a natural inclination to be good. And also something that Polarity Josh, I interviewed him recently, and something that he said is that it's not natural for us to hurt somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, why did we then in the past, there were all these people would torture each other or kill each other, all the wars. And he says, what, that's the thing, like, how did this happen? Like, why is this happening? Because it doesn't seem natural. Because I thought maybe we just changed, maybe the society changed, maybe that's why we're not doing that anymore. But I mean, we are doing it in some parts of the world. But it's just like, if you talk to a random person, is it natural for them to hurt somebody, to kill somebody? Is it in them? And it seems like it's not. So then where is it coming from?
Mm-hmm. It's a good point. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think hurt people, and that's where it's culminated from. Hurt people just hurt people, and it goes on and on and on. I think that's what's happened, but also I think it's inverted, as you say. It isn't people that 99.9% of the people of the world are good people, and even people within the cult are good people who think they're doing the right thing, who have convinced themselves that they've done the right thing. Because you want to survive. Your natural inclination is to stay alive. So I agree with you. What you said is interesting there. You said society's changed, and I think that's a really important part, because there isn't such. That's kind of like an egregore. Do you know? Have you heard of an egregore?
No.
An egregore is like a fan. It's in occultism, and it's a demon or an entity. So it's not demon, it's not evil, it's an entity that the vast majority of the people in this world, or within your society, in your group, and will dream up, and it becomes a being of itself. Now, society is an egregore. There is no such thing as society. We are society. It doesn't exist without us. We are the society. So there is no such thing as, it doesn't come. They've tricked us into thinking it comes from the outside in. It doesn't. It comes from the inside out. So everything comes from the inside out. So the reason why people behave that way is because of programming. Hollywood, the news, the newspapers, the messaging, the religions, things like that, that put fear in you, that or teach you you're a sinner or a bad person. How are you born a sinner? I haven't done anything yet. It's just ridiculous. It's absurd. But that's what religions have done. Tell you you're a born sinner and you've got to repent and be saved. What from? Done anything? Done anything? It's ridiculous. Oh no, your grandfather's sin. What are you talking about? It was his fault, not my fault. It's absurd. So that's where it comes from. It comes from the outside in. So when you get strong within your protective boundaries, that's why a castle has protective boundaries. You don't want any old sod in, because they bring their baggage with them and they move in. So you become psychologically strong, where I know who I am, and no matter what you tell me, I know the truth about me, and I always will. And there's nothing you can do, say. The world might hate me, and you might convince them I'm the most evil person on the planet. I know different, and it only really matters what I think. When you get to that point, then you're stable. You are a secure unit. And then if you have enough people like that in society, why would people want to hurt each other? You're fine. You're happy as you are. It's because they've turned everything satanically inside out. I'm not looking for approval from other people. Social media's like that. How many likes, how many follows, how many hearts have we got? It's all about turning it inside out. You don't need some stranger in a different country to tell you whether you're a good person or not. We all fall into it. I'm not above it either, because we're conditioned that way. We're stuck in a school for 8 hours a day as kids, told what the world is, when the teacher at the front of it hasn't got a bloody clue. Haven't got a clue. The blind leading the blind. And I knew that as a kid. So coming back to what you said earlier about how did I know? I knew when I sat in the classroom, the bloke at the front, who was probably a nice guy, was utterly fucking clueless. And my mum and dad were clueless. I saw their behaviour when I had a drink. They were clueless. They don't know any of the stuff that I know. They don't, because they never took the time to look for it. They're not bad people. They're people trying to get by. but it doesn't do you any good in the world to limit your abilities and power and self-worth, does it? So if everybody had the good self-worth, they wouldn't want to so much go out and hurt other people, because they'd value themselves and value others. We don't value each other. 67,000 people were just killed and they want to give the bloke a Nobel Peace Prize. How backwards has the planet got? It drives me insane. Well, not really. Half of it just makes me laugh. But it's so sad that the coping mechanism I have now is to find this stuff absurdly funny. Because 67,000 people have been killed, 20,000 kids. This is where we've got to. We're having a breakdown, a mental breakdown. And people are giving the Nobel Peace Prize to a guy that's just genocided 67,000 people. How did we get here?
I think that now I just realized it's true that yes, it is not natural for us to hurt somebody or kill somebody, but fear, I think, and brainwashing. So yeah, I think that's what we have seen, haven't we, during COVID? Even the good people, they were good, they were thinking they were doing good, but also they were, as you said, wanted approval of others, and they were led by fear. Okay, so there's two ingredients then.
Yeah.
You're afraid, plus you want everybody, you want to belong in a tribe.
Exactly. So what are they afraid of? You hit the nail on the head there. So what are they afraid of? They're being afraid of being pushed out of the tribe. Being alone.
Yeah. Okay. So then that's what needs to, I don't know. I don't know how or what, but one of the reasons why I started talking about this is because I was so, as you said, like I bewildered during COVID. Like, how is this happening? Why is this happening? Why is nobody saying anything? Why am I scared? Because I was scared to speak up. I saw women, they were asking questions on Facebook. Can we get pregnant women? Can we get COVID? And I had fear to message, comment, say, maybe just take some time, like maybe just wait. I was afraid and I thought, what's happening to me? Because I never found myself in a situation like that ever. Even I grew up in Uzbekistan. It's a dictatorship. If you say something,
yeah, exactly,
you're in trouble. And even I, in Germany, I was afraid. How did this happen that I was never afraid in Uzbekistan? But why am I afraid here? So that was the moment where I said, something needs to be done, but I don't know what or how. But hopefully that these conversations
heal. They do, and people need to talk properly, drop the mask and talk properly, and so, because we're not, there's so billions of us and there's 3,000 of them, and they're not even probably, like, they've become evil. They're born evil. I don't believe in any of that stuff. I believe that your trauma makes you shut off. You might become psychopathic and psychotic, and then you are dangerous. But you weren't born that way. I don't believe anyone's born that way. I don't. And there's always a way back. So these conversations are healing, because you're not alone, because most people feel this. They knew putting on the mask and all that stuff, but they were convinced that they were doing the right thing. But they didn't realize the symbology. They didn't understand the information. They didn't realize that the rainbow is the bloody Noahide laws, which is the laws they want to put in place when the cult comes in, which is the 7 laws of Noah, which comes underneath the biblical promise of God that he would never flood the world again and get rid of the humans. But that doesn't mean us, because they don't see us as human. So that was part of it. COVID, Corona virus. Corona is crown. It's the crown virus. Once you know these things, you can pick it apart. This is bollocks. Like, I knew, obviously, from day one that this is nonsense, but you still don't know if they're actually going to release a real one. But I knew that reaction was ridiculous and hilarious, and at points it was really funny. So I didn't go along with it. I wasn't afraid, because I just thought, I just can't be bothered. Can't be bothered. And I was more waiting it out. My family and people in my family started doing some of the things, and I'm like, I can't say anything because it just caused arguments. But I do know better because I've looked into this stuff. It's my job to look into this stuff and what this messaging and symbology means and why they're putting the things on the telly and why they're saying to stand so far apart from each other. I know that. That's your energetic field between you and that person. If you come closer than that, you start to feel each other's hurt, pain. You start to connect. So they know these things. It's alchemy. They know all of this stuff. They were testing the world to see what they could get, what would happen. I knew that. The difficult thing for me was I knew most people didn't know that. They didn't have a clue. And not because I'm clever, it's because I've been fortunate enough to be able to have the time to look into these things. Everybody can learn this stuff. If I can learn it, honestly, other people can. I've just taken the time, had the time to do it because I've been lucky and I've had skills in video production, which has allowed me to get into this avenue so I could earn a living. But, you know, it all comes back to the fact that they just want to manipulate our energy. They want us to fight each other and cause chaos so they can control us. Everyone, no matter your creed, colour, face, height, race, faith, background, they don't care about any of us. None of us. And why would they? Because what can they get from us? Well, we actually feed them. Because having us in this position, our tax money, we're at the farm working, while these guys just feast off us. So as soon as we turn around and realise that there's a few thousand of them, bloodline families, if that, they're done. But, you know, that's why I do the work I do, because one day in the future, some people might start to find this work and see this work, and we are making headway. They're panicking. Look at the state of them. They're shooting each other. They're killing each other. Like, they'll kill each other over the stuff. Well, Charlie Kirk's just been shot. He was in with them. He wasn't a bad person, but as soon as he started to understand what they were up to, they took him out. They did it to JFK. They'll kill each other. They did it to Osama bin Laden. Was in business with the Bush family for years. For years. It's ridiculous. They're all in the same cult and they know what they're getting into. They will kill each other. So eventually they will end up imploding. But again, thousands of people have died in the meantime, innocent people that don't understand the game that's been played with them, with their lives. When you're born, they set up it's not you that comes under the crown. They set up a corporation in your name, a legal entity with all capital letters of your name. And you earn money for your own corporation. So everyone's technically self-employed. And that money, that company that's mine one's called capital letters Richard Willett, pays money to the crown. Yours does too. And because they can't own you because you're a sovereign being, but they can own a corporation that parents have signed you up for with your birth certificate, and you can't do anything without a birth certificate. So they make it impossible to function as a corporation. That's the scam of it all. So they know you're a sovereign being. They can't control you, but they can control the corporation that's been set up in your name. And that's how the crown works. So it's a scam. It's a global corporation. We're already in the beast system. It's not coming. It's been here a long time. And I'm trying to take it down. Get people, but the only way to do that is for people to understand that you would not see the prison bars if you don't realise you're in prison already. But it's all right in here because we've got each other. So I always say that, like, if you put me in prison with 15 of my mates, is it prison or have we got on holiday?
Yeah.
Which one is it?
Yeah.
It depends who you're in with. Yeah.
Exactly.
If you get on with people, and if you I've always wondered about prisons. Like, they're actually energetic. They used to be made of red brick. Certain type of red brick holds vibration. So that would be a reason why it's literally a power plant of fear. But if everybody in the prison got along, then they'd have a lot better time. And they wouldn't feel so bad about having to be in there. It doesn't make sense to me. Again, it's inside out. It's inside out.
I think that also I noticed that I don't know if it's coordinated, if there's anything, but it just from the way that things happen, they don't want people to have a good time. That's the feeling I'm getting.
Because they can't lose that energy. Yeah, they can only lose the energy of fear. They live off it.
Yeah. And they want to be people like isolated. I think you were in your this is exactly why COVID was so successful, because people were not talking to each other. People live separately on their own, far away from their families, and they don't exchange information. Even if they do, they're already brainwashed. It's too late. But the families, that big families, like Asian like families, when we live in big houses, right? Like everybody, uncles and aunts, and we're all in the same place, and you talk every single day, you communicate. And most of the time, even if you have like family disputes or whatever, families stay as a family
Yeah.
most of the time. Yes, we do have our whatever, but when it comes to whatever is coming from outside, you unite
Mhm.
immediately. I mean,
Yeah.
this is something very in the core, like having a family and being together. I mean, nobody moves out. I mean, it's one of those things that is, I think, another thing. I mean, it's good that when children have their own place, but I also know there's a lot of push for children to move out like right away. 18, you're 16, you're 20, you need to move out right away, out of your family's, your parents' wing and control. And I think that's very a bit, I think early. I mean, children, the brain stops forming at 25. What do they know? And once you're out of your parents' sight and far away, it's easier to brainwash you. It's easier to control you. I think
Mhm.
that's, I don't know. That's what I have noticed in Europe and in US.
Oh yeah, totally right. When it back in the so the when we were in tribes, it used to be the grandparents that looked after the children because they could teach them. Why am I going to my son's school and seeing a 19-year-old teacher? Doesn't make any sense to me. It's like you're barely out of school. It's like I'm not being rude, but you're barely out of school. I didn't know what I was doing until I was a 35, at least. And that's I'm only 44 now. So like, it doesn't make sense. They had it right back then. You'd live in tribes. You would live with the people that believe similar things to do. You'd leave other people alone. You might say hello, but then you would then you would then you would have the elders would look after the kids and teach the kids, and the younger people, because they've got the energy, would go out and feed and work, in terms of keeping hold of the family. But they didn't want that. They wanted everybody together, hive mind, squashed together, all think alike. People don't think alike. We'll never think alike. We'll never get on. We're not supposed to get on. 8 billion people are not supposed to want the same things. We don't move forward that way. We just stagnate. We're not supposed to all want the same things. We're supposed to try different things out. We're supposed to respect each other's boundaries. But they want a world that doesn't work. And it's not going to happen. I'm not like worried about them building the temple and having a AI broadcasting system coming out of the top, all the stuff that I believe they want to have, and the smart grid and social credit scores for everyone. I don't believe it's ever going to happen, but I do believe they're going to hurt a lot of people, as they're already doing in the long run, along the way. Sorry, and that's what I'm trying to stop, because these people are lunatics. They're absolute lunatics.
What do you think is going to happen next? Is there something big coming like 9/11 or COVID?
I think, well, what we're going to see is a continuation of what they're doing in the Middle East. Absolutely. So now this whole Gaza situation over, it's not over. They've done their job. They've flattened the place and killed most of them. So they're going to move that messianic agenda on. You're going to see the prodding of Islam. So the West versus the East. Islam in the UK, we've got Tommy Robinson over here causing trouble. Well, he's disappeared off to Israel now. Here between those of the Islamic faith and those of the Christian faith, they're going to be pitted against each other, because they're supposed to mutually destroy each other. They're supposed to do that. It's called the Leviathan versus the Behemoth. They mutually destroy each other, and then Aziz, who's a big bird thing, comes down and pecks on the remains. Aziz is the cult. That's what they're supposed to do. So you're going to see the East and West pitted against each other. They want that World War III, which whatever form that'll come in. You have those of the Islamic faith believe when Medina's sacked, which is not far from Gaza, realistically, they believe that's the sign for Armageddon starting. They've got the Neom Great City in Saudi Arabia, which I think is where they're going to try and house some of these Palestinians as a test to see how that smart city works. I think you're going to see those things coming along. They're going to move this agenda along. They've got 220 years in their ridiculous mind. Sorry, so 220, 250 years in their ridiculous mind by 2240 to get it to the point where they move into their day, the last day.